Good morning. Welcome to the press or Post-SONA. Good morning to sa ating mga friends from the media. It's my pleasure to introduce members of our panel this morning. We have NEDA Secretary Ernesto Pernia. We have DBM OIC Janet Abuel, DSWD Secretary Rolando Jesalito Bautista, and NSC Secretary Hermogenes Esperon Jr., mamaya parating, DILG Secretary Eduardo Año, DND Secretary Delphine Lorenzana, CCC Secretary Emmanuel de Guzman, NAPSI Secretary Noel Felonco, DOTR Undersecretary Gary de Guzman, DepEd Undersecretary Nepomuceno Malaluan, DOF Assistant Secretary Antonio Lambino III, DNR Undersecretary Benny Antiporda, good morning sir, DPWH Undersecretary Catherine Cabral, DICT Undersecretary Eliseo Rio Jr., PDEA Director General Aaron Aquino. Nakaparating pa rin siya. Before we proceed to the question and answer portion, may we call on Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles for the opening statement.
Thank you, Rocky. To my colleagues in the Cabinet, DND Secretary Delphine Lorenzana, DILG Secretary Eduardo Año, DSWD Secretary Rolando Jesalito Bautista, NEDA Secretary Ernesto Pernia, NAPSI Secretary Noel Felonco, and later on we'll be joined by our National Security Advisor, Secretary Hermogenes Esperon, and our CCC Chair, Emmanuel de Guzman. DBM OIC, Secretary Janet Abuel, and all of our high-ranking officials from the different departments. Friends from the media, fellow workers in government, a pleasant morning to one and all. And thank you for joining us today. Yesterday, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte delivered his fourth State of the Nation address, just a few weeks past the middle of his 6-year term as our chief executive. He crosses this threshold with record high approval ratings on the heels of a midterm national election that many consider a referendum on his first 3 years in office, an additional metric by which to assess our people's support for the President's programs, and a means by which those of us in government can gauge the public's enthusiasm for the reform measures of his administration. To borrow the President's words, these numbers speak 1,000 words and tell 100 tales. They tell us that our people are one with the President in his unrelenting campaign to restore faith and trust in our government, in his unwavering efforts to uplift the living conditions of our people, and his sincere desire to build a secure and peaceful nation. They also demonstrate that our countrymen have embraced the ethos of President Duterte's administration, tapang at malasakit, because he has proven that these two interdependent elements are necessary in order for the administration to attain its ultimate goal, to provide a comfortable life for all Filipinos. How has tapang and malasakit served as an effective mantra for the administration these past 3 years? How has this philosophy guided the government in the conceptualization, planning, and implementation of its programs and policies? In the preparations leading up to the President's SONA, it was agreed that the President's alter egos would assist the President in providing the public with a clear and detailed picture of the state of our nation, something that would be aided with in-depth briefings such as the pre-SONA activities, and with informative and comprehensive publications like the President's midterm report to the people, prepared by the Presidential Management Staff in collaboration with the various agencies of government. This post-SONA briefing is another component of our whole of government approach to providing our constituents, our stakeholders, our kababayans with the facts, all the facts, and nothing but the facts. Facts supported by figures and buttressed by data, so that our people can draw their own conclusions about the true state of the nation. Allow me to illustrate with a few examples how powerful the facts are. We all know that the closure of Boracay was an unprecedented display of political will. We also know that its positive effects on the beauty of the island is visible to the naked eye. However, the far-reaching impact of this directive on the environment is not. The numbers, however, speak for themselves. The fecal coliform levels in the island fell from 18,000 mpn per 100 ml in April 2018 to 40 mpn per 100 ml in May 2019. This is an incredible, astounding drop. Another example is the turnaround in efforts to improve revenue collection. The President pointed out yesterday that the collections of the BOC, Bureau of Customs, in 2018 hit 593.1 billion pesos in 2018. This is not just a 29.4% increase over collections in 2017. This also marks the first time the BOC exceeded its collection target since 2008. Our school-based feeding program for public elementary schools, on the other hand, has also made a significant impact, not only in mitigating nutritional deficiencies of school children, but also in keeping them in school. In the last 3 years, 5.7 million undernourished learners in public elementary schools have benefited from this DepEd-led program. And with government now focused on sustaining and building on these feeding programs, with the expanded Partnership Against Hunger and Poverty, or EPAHP, we believe we will be making huge strides in eradicating hunger and making goodbye gutom a reality by 2030. I can go on and on with the infrastructure cluster showcasing their Build, Build, Build program, with the participatory governance cluster showcasing their Hotline 8888, and the SJPC, Security, Justice, and Peace cluster, talking about increased salaries and the modernization of AFP and PNP. There are many other examples and case studies, and my colleagues from the different agencies are here with us today so they can further elaborate on their specific programs and answer questions you may have with regard to the specific pronouncements or directives given by the President pertaining to their respective portfolios. Once again, thank you to all those participating in today's briefing. I join everyone here in hoping that we have a productive and informative morning ahead of us. One which I pray will help enlighten our people on the ways our different departments are working to translate tapang and malasakit into action, and to show that the President's concern for our countrymen is accompanied by the conviction and courage to do what is necessary to protect their interests, uplift their welfare, and improve their lives. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga po muli.
Thank you, Secretary Nograles. We now have Climate Change Commission Vice Chair Emmanuel de Guzman. Good morning, sir. So bago tayo mag-Q&A, may we friendly reminder lang sa ating media friends na pwedeng one question and two follow-ups to ensure smooth flow of our interview. And let us keep the questions centered on issues discussed in the SONA. This is your opportunity to clarify things after the President's SONA last night. Questions, FBC, and other friends. RJ, please use the microphone. Para ma-recognize o makilala tayo natin mga secretaries, please state your name and your company, please. Thank you.
Good morning, secretaries. I'm RJ Balinbin from Business World and MPC. So I'll be asking a very general question for everybody. I think everyone, each department is aware of the marching orders of the president based on his SONA yesterday. So I'd like to know what immediate steps or what will be done first after the SONA from each secretary or official. Thank you.
Ma'am?
For the DILG, of course, my concern is, my mandate is supervision of local government and also of supervising the interior. So immediately, yesterday after the SONA, no, the president addressed the two chambers of, or the two houses of Congress and the Filipino people. Now it is his turn to address and have a dialogue with the newly elected governors and mayors of the country. So this afternoon, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Manila Hotel, we gathered all governors and mayors, numbering about 1,800, for a dialogue straight with the President to clarify also issues that were discussed and also guidance from the SONA. So from there, that is going to be the good start. And then of course, yung mga lahat ng mga sinabi niya doon sa SONA, mayroon na kami mga plano doon like yung how to ease traffic here in Metro Manila, the ease of doing business, and how to curb corruption. So we start right away immediately after SONA. Mamaya, mayroon na kami dialogue.
Can we have Secretary Lorenzana?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. On the defense side, I think the first thing that we should be doing, which we have been doing all along, is to try to eradicate terrorism and the communist insurgency all over the Philippines. Because the president has constantly or continuously or constantly has been reminding us that we cannot progress until we eradicate these menace to our society, terrorism and communist insurgency. And then as we go along, we try to improve the capabilities of our armed forces by procuring defense equipment.
As I mentioned earlier, we will be expanding our program, our partnership against hunger program. So initially, under DSWD Secretary Bautista, we have already piloted the program in 3 regions in the Philippines, and we will be expanding that to 8 more regions. So under the program, yung pagkain na ginagamit para sa daycare center feeding program under DSWD will be sourced directly, are being sourced directly from our agrarian reform beneficiary organizations. And so that program from 3 regions will be expanded to 8. But over and above that, we will be including the Department of Education and DILG in the expansion of this program together with the Department of Health, the DA, and the DAR para yung school-based feeding program din ng DepEd will be sourcing some of their agricultural products straight from the farmers under the agrarian reform beneficiary organizations. So, yun yung expanded partnership against hunger program natin. And then, as far as water is concerned, as you all know, an executive order will be issued soon by the President that will organize our water sector. This is in preparation also for the Department of Water and the water regulatory body that will be hopefully passed by Congress. So in preparation for that, the executive order will put that body together para masimulan na natin yung mga reforms sa sektor ng tubig in preparation for the passage of a law with Congress's support. And then, of course, as we all know, we will soon be convening the LEDAC, the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, para pag-usapan lahat ng mga direktiba ni Pangulo with regard to his legislative agenda and kung ano yung magiging legislative agenda rin or focus ng leaders ng Senate pati ng House of Representatives.
Yes, on the part of NEDA, as policy and socio-economic planning, we are completing the socio-economic report, which takes the score on the administration's performance in 2018 relative to our development plan 2017 to 2022. This socio-economic report looks at the accomplishments, the hits, and the misses of the administration vis-a-vis the targets set out in the Philippine Development Plan in 2018. And on the basis of this analysis, we are going to update the Philippine Development Plan, midterm update. The socio-economic report should be coming out at the end of the month or early next month. And on that basis, I have said, the update of the Philippine Development Plan, midterm update, will be produced by November, so that we will have a fresh start in terms of the second half of the administration. What are the adjustments and needed on the basis of the accomplishments, the hits and the misses that were that were marked in 2018, that were accounted for in 2018, so that we will be able to do better in terms of the misses, and even do better still in terms of the hits that were made in 2018 for the second half of the president's term. And then these accomplishments would pertain to investments in human capital, education, health, and nutrition, in terms of employment data, employment metrics, in terms of poverty metrics, and then this will be the basis for to what extent more efforts will have to be exerted so that the targets for 2022 can be achieved starting this midterm. And also, besides that, we are also going to look at what are the infrastructure projects that need to be pushed harder, to be accelerated, so that they, as many as possible of the infrastructure projects will be accomplished, will be completed by the end of the term of the president, if not well already in terms of well on the way of when underway in terms of getting them started, so that the succeeding administrations can complete them in time, as soon as possible after this administration. Thank you.
On the side of the DSWD, apparently we are on the process of cleansing and validating the list of our beneficiaries. So there are still other programs wherein some of the beneficiaries have not yet been validated. Of course, we are doing this apparently to ensure that the resources of the government is not wasted. At the same time, the benefits should be given to the qualified beneficiaries. Secondly, we will continuously engaging the local government units and other stakeholders to ensure that they will get involved in the implementation of the program of the DSWD. And lastly, there are three laws that were there were bills that were enacted into law last semester, one of which is the Magna Carta of the Poor, institutionalization of the Pantawid Pamilya program, and the last is the social welfare attaches that will be deployed in areas, countries which has a huge number of OFWs. So with that, we will now conducting the formulation of the implementing rules and regulations just to ensure that by next year we can immediately conduct the necessary interventions with regards to the enactment of that laws.
Thank you, Secretary Bautista. We now have NSC Secretary Hermo Jimenez Esperon. Can we have other undersecretaries to answer, or we have climate change, Vice Chair?
Thank you very much. On the part of the Climate Change Commission, we are going to deliver more capacity building services and training for the local government units. And we will be doing this together with the DILG and the Local Government Academy because the President mentioned about the need to strengthen the resilience of our farmers, of our communities to the impacts of extreme weather events like El Nino, no, and mga malalakas na bagyo. So the Climate Change Act of 2009 asked from each of the local government units to come up with local climate change action plans. And we are now going to accelerate our program to capacitate local government units to come up with enhanced local climate change action plans and also train them to come up and develop good project proposals for People's Survival Fund. So this is what we're going to do. And actually in next month, in August, we will immediately roll out a training program in the Yolanda corridor for all the LGUs there. And then the following month in September for the vulnerable coastal communities of the country. And in October, we will have also a rollout of capacity building training activities in Mindanao for the IP communities. Thank you.
We have NAPSI Secretary Noel Felonco.
Yes, good morning. For the National Anti-Poverty Commission, we will continue and strengthen our coordinating efforts to the different line agencies of the government, including the local government units, and we'll also capacitate our 14 basic sectors who are our partners for the poverty reduction activities, programs, and projects of the Duterte administration. Yesterday, I think the President has instructed the whole government to really help our farmers and fisher folks. So the NAPSI, in coordination with the SWD, NEDA, and other important line agencies, will implement the prototype projects for our coconut farmers and fisher folks. Yesterday, I'd like to inform everyone that PAGCOR and NAPSI had signed a memorandum of agreement for the utilization of the 49 million pesos, which was untouched during the time of the previous Secretary of NAPSI, Lisa Masa. So, beginning today, we can already use the 49 million for the prototypes for our farmers and fisher folks. So for the coconut farmers, we'll be putting up village-based coconut or integrated coconut production plants. It's a village-based, so that that will caution the problem of our coconut farmers in terms of the prices of copra. So coconuts farmers will now be producing different products of coconut. Example, coconut water, coconut sugar, coconut flour, and others. So that's for the National Anti-Poverty Commission, ma'am. Thank you.
Secretary Esperon.
Thank you. Good morning. Um, as the National Security Advisor, I am involved in several issues on threats to our national security. The President, of course, mentioned about the designation of cabinet members to become the cabinet officers for regional development and security. This is in connection with our new national task force that is led by no less than the President. It is a national task force to end the local communist armed conflict, where we not only address the threats from the armed group that is the New People's Army, but we also address the standing sources of dissatisfaction, meaning the lack of basic services, livelihood, and infrastructure in the countryside. Towards this end, the National Task Force has been organized into 12 lines of efforts or clusters that will now go to the affected areas as well as vulnerable areas where the New People's Army, the Communist Party of the Philippines, and its front organizations are still operating. We intend to end the local communist armed conflict within the term of the President and degrade it into something that could no longer launch an armed revolution, an armed rebellion to take over government. Another concern is the lingering threat of terrorism. As the Secretary of National Defense, I would imagine, and DILG must have discussed, terrorism stays with us, despite the solution of secessionism in the South, which has changed the MNLF and the MILF to enemies, but now they are now partners taking care of our autonomous region for Muslim Mindanao. We still have the threats from the Abu Sayyaf, BIFF, and the other smaller threats, armed threats like the Maote group that have affiliated themselves with foreign terrorists. In this connection, we are now going into intensified programs which we have converted into National Action Plan to prevent and counter violent extremism. If we are now fighting the armed groups and there are terrorists that come up every now and then, our duty is to discontinue the rise of future terrorists, especially that we have come to know that the influence of foreign violent extremism had influenced our youth to even become one of suicide bombers. We will counter this with our programs to prevent violent extremism. And the lead agencies will, of course, be DILG, the NCMF, the National Defense, and other agencies that would actually amount to something like a whole-of-nation approach to terrorism. If we are now fighting the armed terrorists, we must now put more effort into preventing the rise of future terrorists. There are other programs that we want to pursue. Of course, defense is strengthening its position in the West Philippine Sea, but to that we will add more marine scientific research, the putting up of lighthouses, and using technology to take care of our maritime domain. And so we will have now the use of unmanned aerial vehicles and imagery satellite to take care of our maritime domain. That will therefore involve and strengthen our fishing activities in our maritime domain. Thank you.
Okay, can we have TBM OIC Janet Abuel and then USEC Rio?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, On the part of the Department of Budget and Management, we have heard all the priority programs and projects of all our agencies consistent with the priorities of the President. Of course, our role would be to support that with the aim of balancing it with the finite fiscal resources that we have, and also considering the macroeconomic assumptions, our medium-term growth assumptions, as well as the long-term fiscal sustainability. So we commit to work closely with all of our agencies, the secretaries, in order to be able to provide in the most efficient manner their budgets for 2019 as well as the requirements for 2020 and the succeeding years. Thank you.
Good morning. I think for the ICT, the most significant statement of the President during his SONA yesterday was that the selection process for the third telco there is no corruption, no, that was involved. And he was so serious in this statement that he even swore over the tomb of his father. No? I think this is the first time that the President did that in a SONA. Well, he also challenged the third telco to give competition to the incumbent so that our telecommunication services will be greatly improved. This jives well with our DICT Vision 2020. Our program for 2020 is that before the end of next year, our people will feel a very big improvement in our telecommunication services and the cost of these services, no, nationwide. And because it involves, of course, the competition with the third telco, we will have then a very big bandwidth that will be coming from Facebook, 2 terabits per second, that we can now use for free Wi-Fi and for our e-government to give basic services, no, online services to our people, even in the remotest area of our country. So this is actually a program that is, of course, instructed by the President on the ICT. Thank you very much.
Okay, can we have now Rose Novenario?
Hi, sir. Good morning. For DOTR, sir, sabi kagabi ni Presidente, 3.5 billion pesos daw po yung nawawala sa ekonomiya dahil sa problema sa trapiko. Ano po yung update natin sa mass transport system? At sa DILG po, paano po ninyo maipatutupad yung sinabi ni Presidente na to reclaim public roads from private interests? Thank you.
Maraming salamat po sa katanungan. On the part of the OTR po, unang-una ang ginagawa po naming intervention is yung rehabilitation ng MRT 3 para po mapagaan natin yung traffic natin sa EDSA. Para po sa kaalaman ng lahat, yung pong rail natin, mga rail replacement, dumating na po galing sa Japan, kompleto na po yan, 100%. So magsisimula na po na improve sa MRT 3. Meron din po kaming pinorm na interagency action on traffic, council on traffic. Kasama po dyan yung PNP, yung MMDA, LTO, LTFRB, pati na po yung Coast Guard namin, pinasama namin. Mapapansin nyo po sa EDSA, medyo nagkakaroon po tayo ng improvement kasi may makikita na kayong mga interagency personnel na nagmaman po ng traffic natin kahit na weekend. Ang kukumpletohin pa ho namin ay yung mga various infrastructure projects, lalo na yung mga rail projects natin, namely yung Tutuban to Clark, yung MRT 7 na almost 50% complete na, yung subway natin, magsisimula po yung actual excavation niyan, 4th quarter of this year. And we are targeting partial operability of 3 stations from Mindanao Avenue, North Avenue at saka Tandang Sora by fourth quarter of 2021. Yung pong Tutuban Clark na nasabi ko, we're targeting partial operation din po ng 2021 fourth quarter. Lahat po ng ito, kasama nung ibang ahensya, ay nagtutulong-tulong para maibsan natin yung traffic sa Metro Manila. At kasama po namin, napaka-importanteng kapartner po namin dyan, ay yung DPWH. Kasi meron din po silang mga infrastructure projects na makakatulong para maibsan po yung traffic sa Metro Manila.
Rose, question? Okay.
On the part of the DILG, of course, first, no, alam natin na long-term solution dito ay mass transport. No? May magandang description dyan. 200 people sa EDSA, they're riding 117 cars. Or kung sa motorcycle, 100 motorcycles. But you can load 200 people in 4 buses or in 2 train coaches. Just make mass transport palatable to the public. Now, for the meantime, we have to ease traffic. Binanggit na ating Presidente, reclaim private roads to become public roads. Well, nakita natin dito sa Metro Manila, may mga roads na ginawang tiyanggian, ginawang tindahan ng vendors, at ginawa rin mga parking areas. So we will change that. No? Katulad ng ginagawa sa Manila ni Mayor Isko Moreno, yung Divisoria, malinis na ngayon. Tinanggal niya yung mga vendors dito. So yan yung isang step. We will make inventory of all the roads dito sa Metro Manila na ginawang private roads. Secondly, gusto rin natin magkaroon ng kasunduan sa mga gated subdivisions. During rush hours, may mga kalsada dyan na pwedeng bigyan ng access yung public para naman makatulong. Gawin natin mga secondary or alternate roads. And then of course, pangatlo, ipatupad natin yung existing MOA between the DILG, NCR, and the MMDA, covering 1,710 barangays. Nakalagay dito, we will clear roads of obstructions or illegal parking. MMDA magkiklear dyan, and then itaturn over sa barangay, and then the barangay will have to maintain it. Kung hindi, then we will apply sanction. On July 25, magkakaroon ng meeting ang MMC through MMDA Chairman Danny Lim together with the mayors and city administrator to start this. No? Ito na yung isa sa mga priority agenda natin. And of course, we will, through the IAC, no, meron tayong Inter-Agency Council for Traffic. Kasama rin yung Philippine National Police dyan. Ito naman yung pagpapatupad ng law enforcement. Kasama na yung colorum, kasama na dyan yung mga, lahat ng mga traffic violations. And as the President said, I will initiate investigation that would even lead to suspension of local chief executives who will not follow these direct orders of the President.
So marami na kaming i-expect na maluwag na kami, Secretary. Okay. Rose, may tanong ka pa? Okay na. Si Ms. Jan Calimon, TV5.
Morning, sirs, ma'am. Okay po, more and more foreigners are buying condo units po. They even put up small, medium businesses. Is the government open po to 100% ownership of land or properties of foreigners?
Um, 100% ownership of land would require constitutional change. No? So we leave that up to Congress. Although right now, may mga hakbang ginagawa ang ating gobyerno without being in conflict with the Constitution. May mga hakbang ginagawa yung gobyerno para to increase foreign direct investments in our country without violating the provisions in the Constitution. And for that, I'll give siguro si Secretary Pernia and si Asek Lambino to talk about those yung mga hakbang na ginagawa ng gobyerno to encourage more foreign direct investments?
Yeah, as far as land ownership is concerned, kailangan ng constitutional change. But ownership of businesses can be up to 100% when the Foreign Investment Act will be amended. Amendments to the Foreign Investment Act, which is one of the bills that are in Congress now, along with Public Service Act and the Retail Trade Liberalization Act. So yun ang critical bills that need to be passed so that there'll be the restrictions on foreign participation in businesses, in activities, and in projects in the country will be lifted from the restriction of 40-60, 40% lang, mostly even 25% lang for some businesses. They can be, the restriction can be lifted, and there will be increased participation of foreign investors. And then we started with the revision of the foreign investment negative list, the 11th foreign investment negative list, which has already eased up the restrictions on about 8 areas of investment. So, Secretary Lambino can
Secretary
elaborate
Pernia,
to this?
salamat po. The economic team is of one voice when it comes to the legislative measures that Secretary Pernia mentioned. Also, just to add that in 2017 and 2018, yung atin pong FDI level ay nag-average po sa 10 billion US dollars. Yan po ay unprecedented. Hindi pa po tayo nakakuha ng ganyang kataas na FDI sa ating history. At halos doble po yan ng level ng FDI natin sa 2015. Maraming salamat po.
Should emulate is the practice of Vietnam. You know, in Vietnam, practically all areas and activities of investment, pwedeng up to 100% ang participation ng foreign businessmen and foreign investors. And it's rather ironic because, as you know, Vietnam came from being a centrally planned economy. But they have, in a short period of time, eased up these restrictions on foreign direct investment. And that is why Vietnam is really zooming past the Philippines in terms of economic growth, and will soon probably overtake the performance of the economy in terms of per capita gross national income if we do not ease up on foreign restrictions. So I think that should be made, we should make legislators aware of that situation. Thank you.
More question?
Other topic po. If for our economic officials, if Chacha will be pushed, what particular amendments would economic officials or leaders want to push?
Yeah, well, to really have a major step in terms of easing restrictions of foreign direct investment, we need charter change in terms of the economic provisions of the Constitution. That is also what the President has already stated, and perhaps Congress will heed the President's directive on, revising the economic provisions of the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, Dempsey Reyes, Manila Times.
Good morning, sirs and ma'ams. Question is addressed to Secretary Esperon and Secretary Lorenzana. The President mentioned yesterday in his SONA that China is already in possession of the West Philippine Sea. And may we know, sir, why he mentioned that? How did he came up with any conclusion that China is already in possession of South China Sea? And does this mean that we already lost control over our territories in the West Philippine Sea?
Can you,
Repeat.
you said in position or in possession?
Possession, sir.
I think the president did not say that they are in possession,
Yes, they are in possession.
but they are in position.
I think so.
Admittedly, China has built up islands, artificial islands in the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea, starting from 2012 to 2016 and up to now. But the construction of the islands themselves were completed as of 2016. So they are in position in such islands as the Mischief Reef, which is within our EEZ. They also have, they are also in position in the Fiery Cross, which is outside our EEZ, and in Subi Reef, Zamora. In the 3 islands, out of 7, they have airstrips that are 3 kilometers long. And indeed, the build-up has been tremendous. I must repeat that this all happened from 2012 to 2016. So they are in position.
What does that mean, sir? Kasi sabi ni
Well, positionally, they have a big advantage because they have naval ports in 4 other islands that were artificial. They have airports that are 3 kilometers long. For example, Fiery Cross, you would imagine, is 2 times the size of the Bonifacio Global City. And they reclaimed that in 2012 to 2016 while we were pursuing our petitions with the International Tribunal, which is not a United Nations agency. So they have the positional advantage right now. And they have the equipment to enforce their position. So what is your answer there? Our response is to also strengthen our positions. And in our 11 positions in the South China Sea, in the West Philippine Sea, or in the KIG, we have been strengthening Pag-asa for one, where we have an airport. We will soon extend it. We have put up better positions for our troops, and we have also constructed lighthouses in the area. Meantime, our fisheries boats, Coast Guard ships, and of course the Navy and the Air Force have strengthened improved their capability to have more control over our domain, which is the West Philippine Sea.
Secretary Lorenzana?
Yeah, I think I was there watching the president yesterday, and I think he was referring to Scarborough Shoal na nakuha nila sa atin. We used to possess that, and nakuha nila because of some 12 nautical mile limits ng mga islands na yan. But free naman lahat tayo eh. Our fishermen can fish in Scarborough, within the vicinity of Scarborough Shoal, and also in Mischief Reef. That's the reason why one of our fishing boat had an accident with a Chinese fishing boat, because they are there. That area is a fishing ground for a lot of people coming from the neighborhood. So they are nakaposition sila doon sa mga islands nila. But they're not in possession na pag-aari nila yung West Philippine Sea, because we are also claiming it.
in position, not in possession of the...
Yan ang pagkakaintindi namin ni John.
Ang balikan natin kung paano tayo nagkaroon ng territorial claims dyan. Unang-una yung Treaty of Paris in 1898 na define yung ating territory. Pangalawa, yung KIG na proclamation noong 1978, panahon ng President Marcos, na lumabas sa current EEZ natin. Of course, nandun yung 1935 Constitution which also defined our territory. Then 1982, yung on clause which gave us the 200 nautical mile EEZ. At mayroon din tayong maritime-based law noong 2009 kung saan pinag-connecta yung outlying areas ng ating territorial waters and territorial edges. Ngunit kasama yung Scarborough. Kasama yun sa maritime baselines natin and several islands in the Spratlys. We call that the regime of islands where we now have the 12 nautical mile limit. Ngayon, sino naman ang nag-claim din ng lugar with similar concepts like EEZ and territorial claim? Nandiyan ang Vietnam. Do you know that they have 11 islands within our EEZ? And within our KIG, they have another 7. We have Taiwan in the KIG area. We have, of course, now the 7 new islands. So, ang Malaysia, mayroon ding 4 na nasa loob ng ating KIG. Those are, of course, claims that they want also to defend. In other words, dahil ang China, ang sinasabi niya, ang kanyang limits ay yung 9 dash line na pinabulaanan ng International Tribunal, sabi naman niya, we do not recognize the rulings of the International Tribunal. So the dispute remains, the counterclaims remain, and therefore you expect some problems in enforcement of fisheries and even enforcement of the 12 nautical mile territory. So nandyan yan. How do you solve a problem like that? Kailangan mo ang malakas na diplomasya dahil alalahanin natin na ang ating relasyon sa China or other claimants like Vietnam does not start and end with the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea. In the case of China, we also have trade, diplomacy, military, scientific, cultural, tourism, people-to-people approach. So, dahil ba sa South China Sea ay matatapos na yung ating relation sa ibang bansa? O kailangan din makipag-ugnayan tayo dahil sila ay nandito rin sa ating region? We will leave that to the President who is the architect of foreign policy.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, sirs, we would like to welcome our international media friends. Now, question for DILG Secretary Anyo from Robert Ramiro, DIWOC FM.
Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat mga secretaries po. Tatanong ko lamang po, yung kung may inilabas ng listahan para sa mga media na involved sa drugs. Listahan po.
Listahan na?
Narcolist.
Narcolist.
Okay. As early as 2016, naglabas na yung ating Pangulo ng narcolist, no, involving local government officials and even actually involved from the military, the police, and even from the other branches of government. But in particular, we are focusing on local government officials, elected officials. Yung pinakahuling nirelease niya ay yung just before the election. 43 local government officials and 2 from Congress. At lahat ng ito ay tinanggalan natin ng deputation. And the inter-agency against drugs, no? Yung ICAD natin, no? Intercommittee Against Drugs or Anti-Drugs, ay patuloy na nagkakandak ng validation para naman yung mga nasa listahan na lahat na yan, malalaman natin kung sino talaga yung involved at maklear din yung iba. Siguro, maglalabas uli yan probably before the year ends. But for the meantime, patuloy yung pagtanggal natin ng deputation. Yung admin cases ay nandoon na sa Ombudsman. The PIDEA will continue conducting the investigation for the criminal charges, and we will make sure na the enforcement of the law will continue. And we make sure also that the local government officials are accountable, especially in clearing drug-affected barangays through their anti-drug councils, no? Yung ADAC, no? Yan yung ating pinakamalaking instrumento to address both the demand and the supply.
Sir, follow-up lang po, kung pwede. Meron po kasing, mamaya, bigay ko sa yung pangalan. Isang broadcaster na di umano'y pinoprotektahan ng opisyal ng ating gobyerno. Isa itong broadcaster, hindi dito sa Metro Manila, but outside Metro Manila, it is in the province. Makikita na rin natin sa YouTube yung pangalan ang taong ito. Ito isang broadcaster na isang himpilan ng radyo sa ibang lalawigan.
Sir, pwede kayo lumapit sa microphone para po marinig ni Secretary.
Meron po isang broadcaster na lumalabas na rin sa YouTube na gumagamit ng ipinagbabawal na gamot. Kung nakarating na po sa inyong kaalaman o kung hindi pa po ay maaari ko pong ibigay sa inyong pangalan para po mabigyan natin ng ano yung tao. Okay po.
Sige, we welcome that information. Meron rin tayong mga binabantayan, hindi lang naman dyan sa media, also even celebrities. No, nasa watchlist sila at ito ay kinakandakan din ng monitoring ng PIDEA at PNP. So, yung sinabi mo, welcome at I will take action on that.
Okay, maraming salamat. Ms. Tina Panganiban Perez, GMA 7.
Good morning po, sirs. For Secretary Esperon and Secretary Lorenzana, would you like to react to Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio's statement on the WPS yesterday? In case po, hindi nyo pa po alam yung statement niya, ang sabi niya, traditional fishing applies only in territorial sea and archipelagic waters. So yung Chinese steel-hulled trawlers cannot qualify for traditional fishing. There can be no traditional fishing in the reed bank. Also, China is not in possession of the WPS. Marami po kasing nalilito kung position nga ba, like you say, or possession, which I think I heard yesterday because the President also said that wala tayong control sa property. So that's why I'm thinking he said possession. China is not in possession of the WPS because a lot of other countries are going through that part of our seas, and marami ring mga nagsasagawa ng exercises, naval drills doon. So ano pong reaction niyo doon?
Ang dami hindi ko na matandaan lahat yung tanong. Anyway, Senior Justice Carpio has been telling these stories about our inability to protect our sovereign rights, ano? But the President is very strong in his statements that we are not giving up our sovereign rights sa West Philippine Sea. And sinabi din niya na that area has always been a traditional fishing ground of all people around the itong paligid ng South China Sea. Vietnam, Chinese, Taiwanese, Japanese, and Korean, even Koreans, and the Filipinos, and also the Malaysians and Indonesians. So, ang ibig sabihin niyan, sabi nga niya, so they can also fish because they have always been there. So, atin yan, pero we can allow them to fish. Ang gusto niya sabihin doon. Yung sinasabi nila na we are not in possession, I think that is, as I said a while ago, mukhang hindi tama yun dahil paano mo masasabing natin meron nga tayong dalawang dokumento to prove that it is ours. The UNCLOS of 1982 plus the arbitral ruling of 2016, which invalidates the non-dust line of the Chinese. Kaya lang, ang sabi naman ng China, which Secretary Esperon has emphasized a while ago, hindi naman niya ino-honor yung ruling ng arbitral court. At sabi pa ng, when I talked to the ambassador of China about 2 years ago, sabi niya, the UNCLOS does not supersede their historical rights. So they are claiming that on the basis of the historical rights, kaya mayroon silang dundas line.
In other words, the International Tribunal ruling, we would like to emphasize, did not rule on sovereignty or on territories. It ruled on the features. What are their nature? What are their nature? The most rightful reference to sovereignty and territory would still be the 1898 Treaty of Paris. The UNCLOS 1982 actually gives us the economic rights to the 200-mile nautical mile EEZ. It has given us exclusive rights over the seabed, but on fisheries, we have two functions. One is to conserve, and one is to utilize. Are we capable of conserving the whole West Philippine Sea and protecting it? We are, in a limited sense, because of the lack of equipment. We have 5 marine science research vessels from the DNR, from the fisheries, from the armed forces, and UPMSI. That's how we look at the condition of our domain. To protect it, we have the Coast Guard, the fisheries, and of course our armed forces and our maritime command. Do we have enough? You have the answer to that. Of course, we do not have enough. But are we not building up our Navy, our Air Force, our Coast Guard, our fisheries? We are. And in fact, we are even strengthening our positions in the islands that we occupy today. So, in the West Philippine Sea as well as the South China Sea, there remain to be disputes. The International Tribunal ruling did not solve it all. For as long as there are countries that would lay claim to it, there will be disputes. It is not only China, it could be Vietnam, it could be Malaysia. So what do? We strengthen our positions, we improve our capabilities, and we talk to them. After all, our relations with the other nations, as I said, does not start and end with the West Philippine Sea or South China Sea. We have other things to do with Malaysia, Vietnam, China, especially on trade, defense, science, and people-to-people exchange. Tourism. Marami tayong iba pang titignan. Kaya yan ang binabalansin ng ating Pangulo. Kaya nga siya ang naturingang prime architect of foreign policy. It's not, the exercise of foreign policy is not through the Supreme Court. It's not through the Supreme Court. I think the Honorable Justice is a member of the Supreme Court, not of the executive branch that pursues foreign policy.
Okay. My next question is totally unrelated to WPS. This is for Secretary Nograles and Secretary Anyo. Sir, are we still pushing for federalism? I don't think the President mentioned that yesterday. And marami na po tayong nagastos doon sa campaign before, even when you were congressman, sir. So are we continuing with the efforts or masasayang lang po ba yung ginawa before? Thank you.
Though the President did not mention it yesterday, but in one of his talks in Mindanao, he mentioned that it's still for federalism. Ultimately, ito talaga yung solution dito sa ating bansa. The question lang is, kailan tayo ready? No? So, tuloy pa rin tayo. Meron tayong Inter-Agency Task Force for Federalism and Constitutional Reforms. No? Kung hindi kaya ng federalism, at least constitutional reforms. Alam naman natin na maraming lapses yung ating Constitution. And we have to accept na many of our problems were also because of these lapses in the Constitution. Dapat magmula tayo ng ating mga mata na meron na nga dapat baguhin. No? Ang unang example na lang nga dyan, yung term limit ng ating mga elected officials. 3 taon. Napakaikli. Para sa isang magaling na mayor, napakaikli niyan. Napakahaba din sa isang tiwali. Pero meron tayong mechanism para tanggalin yung tiwaling mayor. Magkaroon ng eleksyon, 1 taon niyang pag-aaralan yung kanyang trabaho. Tapos natuto na siya. 1 year niyang gagampanan. Susunod, election, re-election naman ang iisipin niya. Parang vicious cycle lang ito. Dapat bigyan natin ng mahababang term. At marami pa, no? Marami pang mga, like for example din, sa Armed Forces and sa PNP, yung retirement age ng Chief of Staff at saka ng PNP, 56 years old. Nagrereklamo na yung mga ibang countries kasi yung isang Chief of Defense ng Malaysia, 5 Chief of Staff ang nakausap niya bago siya nag-retire. No? So, sayang yung mga matured leaders natin and so on and so forth. But on federalism, dapat ay magkaroon tayo rito ng magandang pag-uusap, consultation. This is the future. So, hindi pa rin yan nawawala. Yan ay isa pa rin sa priority ng ating Pangulo.
I agree with Secretary Anyo. Wala naman po na sayang dun sa mga efforts na nagawa na, no? Because after the Consultative Commission, nagkaroon pa ng Interagency Task Force on Federalism. So tuloy-tuloy ang consultation, ang pakikipag-usap, ang vetting process na sinasabi. At palagay ko, pag ditong 18th Congress, dahil nagbukas na nga po formally, I think it will also be one of the topics to be discussed in the Committee on Constitutional Amendments, both in the House of Representatives pati na sa Senado. And I won't be surprised if under the leadership of Speaker Cayetano, uusad rin naman po ito sa House of Representatives and hopefully sa Senate ganun din. If it will not happen in the term of the President, at least lahat naman ng napag-uusapan in terms of consultation, all of that is documented. And as long as it is documented and it serves as a reference point, if it will not happen in the term of the President, but of course we want it to happen, but if in case it doesn't happen, it will be it will establish the working template for the next administration. We also should not forget na under this administration of President Duterte, nagkaroon tayo ng Bangsamoro Organic Law. So if that will be the precursor of what will be federal states in the future, at the very least, hindi po naging unsuccessful si Pangulo when it comes to federalism per se. Because under his watch, we were able to establish the Bangsamoro Organic Law. And together with this movement towards federalism, kami naman po sa administration ni Pangulong Duterte, we are also committed to seeing the Bangsamoro Organic Law to its, to see that it succeeds, for Mindanao, for our brothers and sisters ng Muslim Mindanao, and for the entire country as well. But if that is the template, then at the very least, yung accomplishment na yan, nobody can take that away from the President.
Okay, thank you. Last 3, Jonah.
Hi, good morning. I have 2 questions, one on the South China Sea and one about drugs, the anti-drug operations. On the South China Sea, I'd like Secretary Esperon to expound on the lighthouses that you mentioned. Are these new structures, and where exactly, or in the general area, where were they constructed? And what does it mean for us that we have these structures there? And also about the improvements in Pag-asa, what improvements have we introduced to the island exactly, sir?
We'll answer first the improvement. At present, we are building beaching ramp for our ships in Pag-asa. the purpose of the beaching ramp is so that we can bring in construction materials and heavy equipment. Without that, we cannot bring in anything. After the beaching ramp is completed, then we can bring in the sand, the cement, and the heavy equipment to pave our runway. And even lengthen it, kung kinakailangan nating habaan natin siya, then we can do that. So the beaching ramp, the stage of completion is about 60% last month, maybe this month to 70%, and we hope that within this year we can complete the beaching ramp. Now the problem with constructing or building something in Pag-asa is that it has no materials, so we will bring them from Puerto Princesa, and it depends also on the weather. If the waves are high, then they will stop transporting these materials, so they will wait for calmer weather before they can go there. But we are on track in rebuilding or repairing our runway in Pag-asa. Plus, in the future, we will be building structures for our troops there, and maybe some hotels for Filipinos who would like to go there as tourists.
About the lighthouses, sir?
The lighthouses were built in 2018. 3 of them are within our KIG, but outside our EEZ. That includes Parola, which is the farthest. Then we have Pag-asa and Panata. The other 2 are located in Likas and Patag. And we will build 5 more. The lighthouse may be a simple structure, but it serves the purpose of safety of life at sea and navigation, and it also means our sovereignty on the islands themselves. We also have in Pag-asa Island our biggest possession and position, the Kalayaan Sheltered Port, being built by the Department of Transport. It is 400, almost $500 million worth of a project that can afford to later on shelter bigger fishing vessels, or even our Coast Guard and fisheries, as well as our Navy. So those are things that are ongoing. We have not abandoned any island. No island was taken from us since 2016, and we are strengthening our positions and possessions.
Sir, when do we expect to complete the construction of the 5 other lighthouses?
Within this year.
Oh, everything within the year?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a second question on drugs for
go,
Secretary Anyo. How do we characterize, or how would you describe the 5,400 deaths under the anti-drugs campaign by the police? Would you call them, is it an indication that we need to reassess or maybe modify our approach in our campaign, in the anti-drugs campaign, or maybe tweak the program a little?
Well, first of all, bago natin i-mention yung 5,000 plus na sinasabing namatay sa anti-drug operations, remember that based doon sa survey na ginawa ay about 3 million yung affectation natin, yung drug users. 1.3 million ang nag-surrender mula 2016. And we arrested about 147,000 drug pushers. 6,000 are high-value targets, so yung mga tinatawag natin mga drug lords. Now, they conducted about 190,000 operations since 2016. Now, if you compare it with sinasabi ng 5,000 plus death, which we treat differently every case. Nagkaroon ng mga investigation dyan, at meron pa nga tayong mga pulis na nakulong. No, yung mga nag-violate talaga ng batas ay nakakulong. So, ibig sabihin, number 1, wala tayong state policy about EJK. We never tolerate such kind of practice. Lahat yan ay kinantakan natin ng mga investigation. Now, most of this death actually nangyari, bago pa nga umupo ang Pangulong Presidente, marami ng patayang naganap. Siguro nagkaroon ng mga cleansing at purging yung mga iba't ibang drug syndicate. So, but you can see now, no? Very, very rare na lang yung mga insidente ganyan because nag-recalibrate ang PNP, nagpalabas ng mga bagong rules, regulations, protocols, SOP. Lahat ng mga operations kailangan officers-led. It should be done at daytime and there is the participation of barangay officials. So, lahat ng mga measures ay ginagawa natin. Kaya rest assured na while we continue our fight against drugs, I will make sure that we abide by the international humanitarian law and we will not violate any human rights. Now, isa rito yung ipinupush natin. No? We will support the imposition of death penalty, particularly on drugs crimes. No? Why? Ano nangyari kasi ngayon, yung mga drug lord, kapag nahuli, ikukulong mo, nakakapag-operate pa rin sila sa loob by just bribing prison officials. So parang lalo pang gumanda yung kanilang kalagayan. Tuloy-tuloy operation, may gwardiya pa sila, libre pa kain nila. So parang sobra-sobra na yan. But kung merong death penalty, palagay ko malaking pagbabago ang mangyayari dito.
Sir, there was also a recent poll by the social weather stations that 3 out of 5 Filipinos are in favor of the Philippines allowing international investigators to come in and, well, look into our campaign against drugs. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, this is what you call a state policy. It is the president who shall decide. Why? Because there is a apparent violation of our sovereignty if you allow a foreign entity to conduct an investigation here. And secondly, saan ba nakuha nila yung facts? Their facts are very different from the facts that we have. No? Yung mga data na nandito sa atin. How can you allow somebody to investigate you without even verifying the source of his information? So this is really a flagrant violation of our sovereignty.
Sure. Wouldn't that investigation actually clarify our position because they are coming in to actually look on what the situation on the ground is? Isn't supposedly that's the purpose of an investigation, sir,
Well,
right?
that is their perception. But we have enough systems, courts, processes that we can do locally. And we can make sure that we will come up with an honest report. And we will do that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jonah. Last 3, Pia, then Ron.
Good morning. These questions are again about the West Philippine Sea, so I'll be asking NSA Esperon and Defense Chief Lorenzana. Sir, yesterday the President mentioned about fishing agreements, that the UNCLOS allows fishing agreements between 2 countries, but also the UNCLOS says that if it will be for the EEZ, that there has to be a written agreement and the host country must determine the allowable catch. So my question is that what we're going to do now? Are we drafting an agreement and determining the allowable catch that we will allot to the Chinese fishermen?
I don't think there is a drafting agreement to allow other countries to fish there. But the President said that area has always been traditional fishing ground of so many people around the region, around the basin, the South China Sea Basin. And I also don't think that hindi na siguro kailangan na agreement pa dyan eh. The EEZ was giving to us 200 nautical miles by UNCLOS. China is also a signatory to that. But then, later on, they said, meron kaming historical rights dyan. Yung non-dust line namin nandyan. The non-dust line was invalidated by, not invalidated actually, was disinvalidated by the PCA. And so, as far as we are concerned, it doesn't exist. But iba naman yung pagkakaintindi nila. So how do you solve this question about multiple disputes in that area? At tingin ko dyan is, I think the President is correct. Mag-fish tayo dyan. Lahat tayo mag-fish. And later on, maybe we can come up with an agreement among nations around the basin para maprotektahan natin yung environment, there will be no overfishing, maubos yung isda, and to avoid accident. Now, I'll give it to my partner.
Yes, partner. Thank you. Let us remember that the UNCLOS gave us the economic rights. It did not settle the territorial claims, and it remains to be there. Let us also remember that the provision for giving us exclusive rights for fisheries in the 200-mile EEZ is a provision of UNCLOS. And it talks about an ideal situation where there are no differing, conflicting territorial claims. When you put in that factor in that territorial claim now, it becomes different because the UNCLOS will not be the only international agreement that will rule over the area. There is now the conflict of territorial claims. So, fisheries may not become your exclusive right. In fact, in UNCLOS itself, provisions are included so that you may have to share it with the neighbors, especially to landlocked countries. China is not a landlocked country, but it is a claimant to the area. In fact, it also subscribed to the UNCLOS. But the added factor is the claim for the territory. And so, the President, when he said, I have an agreement that we will allow fishing there, simply because in the olden times, there were already people from other countries who were fishing there. And you have to be realistic about it. Do you have really total control over the 200-mile EEZ when you have only less than 50 Coast Guard ships, not even 40? Do you have total control over the area when your Navy does not have so much? Is this an alibi not to act on it? Of course it's not. Because as much as we can, we will do what is necessary to defend the area and to oversee the area for our exclusive right. By the way, there is also a national task force for the West Philippine Sea where I am the chairman. And we discuss the West Philippine Sea matters every week. There are differing ideas in the area, but we, of course, admit that we may not be in total control of the area. So if you demand that we make all the fish there to be exclusive to us, that is impossible. That is impossible. So
sir,
we have to be realistic about it because, as I said, our relations with the other countries may not start and end with the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea.
So, sir, what is the standing order now to the Coast Guard, to the Navy? If they see a Chinese fishing boat within our EEZ, what are they supposed to do? What are the protocols that will have to be in place given the President's order during his SONA?
As we said, especially with Vietnam, if they are not committing illegal fishing, which is the use of chemicals or other equipment that are prohibited, then we can allow them to be in the area. We will not allow them, of course, to go inside our territorial waters.
But sir, isn't mere presence of a foreign fishing vessel fishing within the EEZ a violation of the fishing code? Is that also not an illegal act? Just fishing, no matter what type?
You are correct. And are you telling us that we have all the capability to do it? That is why we are not stopping on building up, enabling our agency to do exactly as what is required of them. You just have to be, realistic about it, that as much as you want to cover it, we cannot. That is why we are now even resorting to the use of imagery satellite, which we will soon have, and unmanned aerial vehicles, which we will have within the year, so that we have better awareness and better deployment and enforcement within our maritime domain, which is primarily the EEZ.
Yes, sir. But you do find, if there is a Coast Guard in the area and they have the capability to stop a Chinese fishing ship within the EEZ, will
Yes,
they do it?
yes,
Will they?
yes. That
Okay,
is our
so
job.
they will stop, even if hindi po
But
illegal fishing.
I will not promise you that we are everywhere.
Okay. Sir, my last question is about the drug war. Sorry. For PDEA Chief Aaron Aquino. Do we already have updated figures for deaths under investigation? Because I understand that we released the numbers for deaths during anti-drug operations, but we did not see the updated figures for deaths under investigation.
The updated figure, it will be coming from PIDEA. As far as yung sinabi kong figure kanina, more or less yun yung running figure natin. The death's about 5,300. So probably PIDEA, through the rehabilitation, will come up with an updated figure. But so far, yun yung running figure natin.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia. Ron Gagalak. Ang last question natin si Alan Gatos.
Morning, sir. For Secretary Nograles and Secretary Año. Sir, the President spoke lengthily about corruption yesterday. We just wanted to know what would be the specifics on how to eliminate, if not eradicate entirely, especially in the executive level and in the local government level.
First of all, sa DILG muna, yung the Ease of Doing Business Act, no? Ito yung isang magandang batas, 11032, na kung saan nakaprescribe na rito yung number of days when you're transacting business with DLGU. For simple transaction, 3 days. No? Ano yung simple transaction? Ito yung mayor's permit and business permit. Kapag kompleto na yung requirement mo, 2 days kapag new application and 1 day kapag ito ay renewal. So kapag mga complex transaction like occupancy permit and building permit, 5 to 7 days. Kasi may mga inspection pa yan na kailangan gawin. At yung mga highly technical transaction, 20 days. Lalo na kung kailangan ng resolution ng sangguniang bayan or sangguniang panglungsod. But ang importante dito ay binabantayan na natin itong compliance. And based on our audit, 80% na ang nakakapag-comply dito sa process natin na to. Ang babantayan na lang namin dito, well, bumilis nga, naging 1 day. Pero baka naman tumaas yung kotong dito. Kaya kailangan dito yung transparency. Kaya meron tayong guidance also na magkakandak sila mag-establish ng BOSS, Business One-Stop Shop. Nandiyan na yung Bureau of Fire, andan yung BPLS, andyan yung Barangay Clearance Office. So, dyan lang yan. Ano? Mayroong CCTV yan. Sabi ko, kung pwede nga lahat ng empleyado dyan, ang damit nila walang bulsa para sigurado. No? But we welcome reports. Kaya andyan yung hotline 8888, mga assistance centers natin, at saka yung Presidential Complaint Center. 80% ng mga complaint dito, nagtugunan natin at nagawa natin ng aksyon. At yung sa EODB, ay merong kaukulang parusa yan. Kasi criminal act na yan, 1 to 6 years, up to the fine of 2 million ang pwede nating ipataw dyan. So, sa aspect yan ng doing business. Now, we have other bantay-corruption program dito. Like for example, yung ating compliance audit dito, may citizens participatory audit na. Meron din tayong DevLive application. No? Sa technology, buksan mo lang yung DevLive. Makikita doon anong particular projects meron ginagawa sa yung locality, ilang days dapat yan ma-accomplish, ilang percentage dapat. Pwede mong i-report dyan. With pictures, ilagay mo dyan. A-action na namin yan. So yung itong lahat ng mga mechanism na to, palagay ko, marami lang pwede magamit yung ating mga kababayan para ma-report yung mga lahat ng mga corruption allegation. And we will make sure na lahat ito ay na-actionan. Siguro since 2016 up to now, mga more or less nasa 400 na yung local government executives na ating na-suspend or na-dismiss because of allegation, because of corruption in other cases.
Nabanggit naman siguro ni Secretary Anyo lahat no ng ginagawa ng gobyerno for anti-corruption. Siguro dadagdag ko na lang na remember we also have an FOI dito sa executive branch and we call on the legislative branch to also pass the FOI bill para naman ma-institutionalize natin yung Freedom of Information Act. At alam naman po natin na si Pangulo mismo is taking a hands-on approach sa anti-corruption drive niya. Kaya with the President at the helm, I think all of these things he's really taking very personally. And then yung nabanggit niya rin sa SONA is yung paggamit ng mga applications para mapabilis yung mga transaction. Nabanggit niya sa LTO, sa SSS, sa Pag-ibig. So if nakikita natin as much as possible for us to be able to, if we make government transactions efficient and we lessen human intervention sa mga transactions with government and simplify the process, like the President says, then that is one way also of curbing corruption. At least yung temptation ng corruption mawawala. And pag magawa natin to all over, not only in the national agencies and national departments, but also in the LGUs, then I think that's the direction that we want to take for the next 3 years. And ang importante, ma-institutionalize natin lahat mga practices na to para hindi mahirapan yung next administration.
Sir, for Secretary Lorenzana and Secretary Esperon, sir, under the principles of the traditional fishing rights, it means that China can fish there, and so does the Filipino. Everybody can fish there. But the fishermen are saying we can fish there, but not in most areas where fish are abundant. It's unfair. Yes, there is traditional fishing rights, but the fishermen are feeling that rights are unfair to us. Is that something that they should live with under this administration? Or what can we do about it, sir?
That is wrong. We should know that. It should report that those incidents to us, to me, or to Secretary Spiron, so that we can bring that to the Chinese authorities. Because as when we are talking to them, okay naman sa kanila, you can fish there, your body can fish there. Nagkakahalo-halo nga yung mga fishing boats dyan especially sa Mischief Reef. Yung nandyan yung Chinese, Vietnamese, Filipino, sometimes meron pang Taiwanese nag-fishing dyan. But we have not heard formal complaints coming from our fishermen that they are being prevented from going to other areas, parang nakakanalize sila sa isang lugar.
And by the way, let us not forget that for all their infractions that we detect, especially when we meet at the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea, we immediately draft the letter for political action, meaning diplomatic protests come out. And this is almost a routine happening because when we discuss what's happening where they're deployed, where they go, what they do with our fishermen, these are subjects to diplomatic protest. And I'm glad that the Department of Foreign Affairs, Secretary Locsin, had always been very supportive. If he sees anything that the other party does which contravenes our claims, which contravenes the welfare of our fishermen, diplomatic protests are immediately issued or lodged with the Embassy of the People's Republic of China. Hindi tayo, yun ang unang step natin. In fact, yun ang ginawa nating kauna-unahan noong nangyari yung Rectobank incident or accident or lesion. Inunaan kaagad natin ang diplomatic protest, then we went on to investigate the matter. It is not a closed matter yet, but rest assured that we are doing our best within our capabilities, diplomatic action to lodge our dislike or protest. Then we also have the bilateral consultative mechanism with China where we bring out our concerns. And remember that within the ASEAN construct, the talks on the code of conduct are ongoing. So it's not all for naught na kalimutan na natin yan o pabayaan natin na may nangyayari sa atin. May mga mechanisms na ating sinusundan, pinuporsige. In fact, the President himself is the lead country in the negotiations for the Code of Conduct. Hopefully, this will result to better arrangements in the West Philippine Sea and in the South China Sea.
Sir, one last clarification for Secretary Anyo. Sir, you mentioned po kanina it would be best kung magkaroon ng term extension yung ating mga local chief executives because anyway there is a mechanism if we want to remove them. Is this also something you recommend for the executive branch as well as the legislative branch?
Well, kasama to sa mga issues ng constitutional reforms or constitutional amendment. At even in Congress ay pinag-uusapan na to at hiningi yung aming opinion and we support this initiative. This is in the spirit of good governance para magkaroon naman ng mahaba-habang termino yung mga mayor natin para pagbibigay ng serbisyo. Hindi yung every 3 years election tayo, magastos pati, no? Kaya we support that move. Now, gusto ko rin magbigay sana ng opinion doon sa West Philippine Sea. Kasi nabanggit mo na kukonti na lang yung isda kaya nagkakaagaw-agawan dito. That's not true because the EEZ is 2.3 million square kilometers. Ang pinag-iisdaan lang ay 10,000 square kilometers, less than 1%. Why? Kasi ito yung mga area na malapit doon sa shoals, malapit dito sa reefs na occupied. Kasi yung mga fishermen natin, hindi sila high-tech eh. Hindi nila kaya mag-standby doon sa deep sea. Kaya lumalapit sila doon sa mga lugar na yon na mga occupied, kaya nagkakaroon ng conflict. But if we will provide support to the fishermen, magkaroon ng high-tech na mga fishing vessels, they don't have to go near this disputed island. The 2.3 square million kilometers, very big for us. Ang dami natin pwedeng pangisdaan.
Thank you, Ron. Last question, Alan Gatus.
Kay Sekretariya niyo po. Nabanggit kahapon sa SONA Hello po. Ayan. Okay. Okay, kay Secretary Nograles pala, sorry. Kay Secretary Nograles. Nabanggit po sa SONA ni Presidente na yung pahirapan yung mga transaksyon sa LTO, sa Pag-ibig, SSS, Bureau of Customs, pagkatapos kasama na yung sa BIR, at isama na rin ho natin yung LTFRB kasi kanina ganun din ho yung problema. Kailan po makikita ng publiko na bubuti yung sitwasyon dahil ito yung pinaka-partikular na binanggit ng Presidente na yung mga pila, mga transaksyon. Kasi ito naman yung unang-una pa na sinabi ng Pangulo na ayaw niya na pinahihirapan sa mga transaksyon sa gobyerno yung yung publiko at may timeline ho ba ang gobyerno para in the next few months ay makita ho natin yung resulta?
Yes. So palagay ko, yung naging basis ni Pangulo sa pag-special mention ng mga ahensya na ito ay dahil nga meron tayong mekanismo tulad ng Hotline 8888 kung saan natatanggap ng opisina ni Pangulo sa pamamagitan ng Office of the Executive Secretary ang mga complaints. So siguro nung nakita nila or ininventaryo nila yung mga reklamo, dito nakikita na karamihan sa mga reklamo ay sakop yung jurisdiction ng mga ahensyang ito or directly yung mga ahensyang ito ang tinutukoy. Kaya ginamit na nga ni Presidente yung State of the Nation Address para i-call ang attention. But over and above that, I think when the President mentions them, he mentions all agencies as well. na lahat ng mga ahensya, lahat ng mga departamento, maging ang LGU. Gusto ni Pangulo i-simplify yung process, huwag na pahirapan ang taong bayan dahil any delay, siyempre hindi mo iwasan, inisip ng tao, may delay dahil may hiningi, may lagay, or dito na nga pumapasok yung human intervention, dito pumapasok yung paghihingi or pangungurakot. Kaya ang suggestion ni Pangulo, kung ano ang pwedeng high-tech naman tayo, no? Maaaring may gumamit ng mga mobile app, maaaring mag-develop ng mga applications ang mga ahensyang ito para mapadali yung proseso at transaksyon. So, number one, na-call ang attention, hindi lang sila, kundi lahat ng mga ahensya at departamento ng gobyerno, maging ang LGU. Sinasabi ni Pangulo, 3 days lang. Dapat tapos na. At maximum 3 days. Huwag niyo pahirapan ang taong bayan. So, na-call ang attention, number one. Number two, gumamit ng teknolohiya. No? Gumamit ng teknolohiya para i-lessen ang human intervention para mawala nga yung korupsyon. And number three, bilisan natin ang proseso. So as far as kami, we're concerned, we will tap, obviously, the participatory governance cluster under kay Sec Anyo para gamitin yan as a mechanism na matutukan itong mga ahensyang ito para mapabilis nila ang kanilang mga transaksyon. But notice has been served to them and siguro pag-uusapan namin ito sa PGC cluster under kay Secretary Anyo at si Secretary Abuel sa DBM.
Nagsiserve ho ba yun? Follow up ko lang po doon. Serve ho ba yun o nagsisilbi ho ba yung warning o notice yun dun sa mga government agencies, particular yung mga lead officials doon?
Palagay ko, kaya nga ang pwede namin gamitin na mekanismo yung PGC para ipatawag namin sila sa PGC cluster para mag-explain sa PGC cluster kung bakit na-special mention sila, number one, at number two, kung anong gagawin nilang mga hakbang gamit yung direktiba mismo ng Pangulo. By the way, itong State of the Nation address ni Pangulo, ang ginagawa po ng opisina namin, ang Office of the Executive Secretary, ang OSAP, at ang PMS, no, ang Presidential Management Staff, lahat ng binanggit ni Pangulo will be taken as presidential directives. And dahil these are presidential directives, ang tanggapan po ng Office of the President, kasama na dyan yung opisina ko, ang OES, ang OSAP, at ang PMS, will be following up all of these agencies and departments and even the clusters on the presidential directives. So these presidential directives will now be issued to each and everyone concerned. At kami po yung magfa-follow up ng mga pag-accomplish or yung kung pagsunod nila sa mga direktibang ibinigay na Pangulo mismo sa kanyang State of the Nation address.
Rocky, can I add something? Sandali lang, konti lang ito. Let us remember that there are at least 2 persons involved in a corruption scenario. Yung corruptor at saka yung corrupted. Yeah? Siguro we should educate our people not to pay any of those offices. Kasi pag nag-umpisa yung magbayad yan, masasanay na yung tao doon eh. So tama yung sinasabi ni Presidente, kung hingian kayo, sampalin mo. Make a scene. But first, huwag tayong magbayad. Some people kasi gusto nilang mauna sila sa linya, magbibigay yan para mauna sila sa linya. I think let us avoid that.
Okay, Alan?
Okay, last na lang talaga, okay? Kay Secretary Anyo naman po, or kung sino po pwedeng sumagot. Actually, pinakisuyo lang po sa akin ito. Yung liquor ban daw po by 12 midnight gusto ni Pangulong Duterte. General relax lang po sa LGUs. Agree ho ba at kaya ba ng nationwide? Yung liquor ban pagdating ng 12 midnight.
Una-una, wala tayong national na batas na nagpapatupad niyan. Ito ay mga ordinansa sa iba't ibang syudad at sa mga bayan, depende sa progressiveness ng isang bayan. Ito ay nagawa na sa ibang mga syudad, like for example in Davao, pagdating ng alas 12, sarado na yung mga bars, no, yung mga nightclub dito, at bawal na mag-serve ng liquor. So, makakatulong yan sa kaayusan, no, sa peace and order. So, dito sa Manila, nasa initiative na ng ating mga mayor ang pagpasa ng ordinansa. Kahit nga itigil mo lang yung pagsaserve ng alak eh. Uuwi na yan kasi pag wala ng alak, di ba? So, para din siguro mabawasan lalo yung krimen dito at mawala na yung mga, alam mo, yung mga temptation sa mga criminal din na, so, with this noble purpose, this is worth taking for our LGUs. May mga LGUs na nag-comment at positively naman yung pagkakatanggap nila sa sinabi ng Pangulo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alan. That ends our Post-SONA, The Presser. Salamat po sa ating mga bisita. Huwag muna kayo alis kasi may photo op. And on behalf of Communications Secretary Martin Andanar, ako po si Rocky Ignacio. Maraming salamat po. Balik po tayo sa People's Television Network.